Welcome to Fuzzy Butts and Friends. Well, we're supposed to say dries fuzzy butts all over this place, especially Moon. As much as if they hate to hear when I say it, I'm the host of this show, your big dog. Back again with you this week, and also we're happy to have back with us again this week. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you'll see I have Moon, who's sticking his tongue in my mouth right now. I'm traveling, and I got this little, it's like an Aussie, Texas. I think it's a Texas cattle dog, trying to kiss me as I talk. So my apologies. We'll look over to my right or my left, who's also back this week to join us, is Ginger Morgan. She's our co-host. She's the co-producer of this show, and she's also the executive director of the Puppy Up Foundation. Ginger, how are you?
I don't know, but I think he's definitely putting the puppy or the up in the puppy up for sure.
Well, this is like a landmark episode for Fuzzy Butts and Friends because I've never really had a fuzzy butt with me for this show, and I have Moon here, who's the sweet boy, and he's obviously got a lot of energy, and he's excited to hear me talk.
What'd you have for lunch? I think he's really interested in how your breath smells and
He's
what you had
licking
for
it off my
lunch.
beard. Actually, a chai tea is all I've had today so far. He's the dog of a good buddy of mine here in San Antonio, Texas, and we're good. So hopefully we can get through this podcast without him licking me the entire episode. So Ginger, how are you? How you been?
I have been well. I was just in San Antonio, so I saw you and the boys, and that was nice. Went to a conference for the HSUS, where, and unfortunately, while I was there, I did not get to meet Moon. So
Yeah. Well, he's a long-term friend of mine, Eric Gamble. It's his kid, his fuzzy butt, and so I'm actually glad that he can join us on this show because I don't think I've ever had a fuzzy butt with me on this show. So it's a good day. It's a good start. And Ginger, we've always talked about here on Fuzzy Butts and Friends how we like to have. We always invite our guests to come back when they have important updates that help or benefit pet parents all around the world. And he was just crying at me. And I think maybe this is maybe our first or second one. And so I'm glad to have it back because it's got an important message, a lot of great things going on. It's Shadi Ireifei with Vet Triage. I can't recall the episode, Ginger. I didn't have a chance to look it up before this podcast. But glad to have him back to talk about some new and exciting things that are going on with Vet Triage. Shadi, how are you? Welcome back to Fuzzy Butts and Friends.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm doing great. I'm doing really good, actually. Yeah, we're, like everybody else, busy lives, man.
You have to stay busy. That's exactly right. I'm crazy busy. I know Ginger is. She and I, we burn the candle at both ends. That's for sure. First of all, my apologies. We had to reschedule. I apologize for that. I'm traveling, and that's also why we're dropping this podcast a little late this week. But man, thank you for coming back. And why don't we go ahead and start off for those that haven't been introduced to you before in a previous episode. Let's start out with you talking about you and your fuzzy butts. I can't recall. Do you have fuzzy butts?
I do not actually.
That's right. I remember. That's right. Actually, I remember before I asked the question. There's you're like one of the only guests I've had that we've had that doesn't have fuzzy butts. Man, how is your life not complete? Or how's your life?
I think he even asked what a fuzzy butt was.
Yeah.
But you're a busy guy though. You're the CMO of Vet Triage, working on some really important projects, and I know how tough it is sometimes that type A, hyper busy people that have max bandwidth or zero capacity for Moon to interrupt podcasts and stuff. So I get it. So I'm not criticizing it. But do you plan on getting some fuzzy butts at some point in your future?
If my life could stabilize a bit more, yeah, just like you're currently traveling and both of you burn the candle at both ends. Same thing for me. I wouldn't be home enough to take care of them effectively. And traveling with a pet, it's more commonplace now. But for my lifestyle right now, with Vet Triage and everything going on, with giving talks and going to conferences, there's just no way. But I would like to once things kind of settle down.
Yeah, well, they certainly change your life. Sometimes, most often for the better. Sometimes not so much. I'm not sure it's a coin toss with me, but
they might keep your face clean, like Moon is doing for Luke.
Yeah, I've never had my nose licked while I've tried to do a podcast, Ginger. It's an interesting experience. Well, why don't we start off before we talk about some of the new and exciting things that you're working with, Shadi, at Vet Triage? Why don't we start off with just a summary up, give our audience sort of an idea of Vet Triage, your mission, what you're working on, and why it's important.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that. I'm Dr. Shadi Ireifei. I'm a board certified small animal surgeon. I graduated from Cornell University in 2006. And since then, I've worked in different facilities, different capacities around the US. And then end of 2019, I launched the first ever full-on video teletriage, tele-advice platform with doctors that was instantly global, any animal type, and we never closed down. Since the end of 2019, we've grown substantially, even since our last episode. Now we're exceeding 70 doctors on the platform. I have a handful of veterinary technicians or nurses that help customer service. We have, I think, we're approaching 1,000 partners now, veterinary partners across the world. Cornell University, University of Minnesota. You mentioned the Humane Society. And we're in multiple countries in that regard. We've now triaged over 40 different animal types, everything from fish to fox to squirrel to ostrich, sea otter, you name it, we've seen it. And folks from 20 different countries have accessed our platform. And that's been every month we exceed the previous months, the previous year's months, so January of this year beat out January last year, February beat out last year. And so it's remarkable growth moving forward in the right direction. So that's the up to date as far as my own background and what I do with Vet Triage.
Yeah, I used to build high-tech and biotech companies back in the day before I devoted my life to Fuzzybutts. And scaling companies quickly it's tough. And actually, I'm not sure if we lost one of the great tech diagnostic companies recently, PetDX. And they were venture backed. They were well funded. They were a great science company, and we had Dr. Andy Flory on the show a couple of times. But for reasons, they just couldn't scale as quickly as possible. And as you know, burn rate, run rate, all that stuff, it counts. So it seems like Vet Triage is scaling nicely. And talk a little bit about that, what it's like to scale quickly with a veterinary medicine based company.
I wish I could tell you I had some secret formula, secret sauce that got us here. It's literally blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, no exaggeration. It requires a small team that we have that's dedicated, that's literally working 24/7 down to the bone to get this thing going, to maintain a balanced quality of life for our team members, make sure that we're compensating them well, make sure we're always growing, make sure we're putting out fires, make sure we're always evolving, both with protocols and our platform. So it's a ton of work. And that's, if there's any secret to that, it's unbelievable devotion with absolute diligence. There's no secret with it, that's just the hard truth of it. So that's how we got here. Now, I was fortunate because as a veterinarian, I could be both one of the owners, chief medical officer, and a vet before we could hire our first vet. And my business partner, same thing. He comes from the finance world and marketing world, but we were fortunate to have his skill set with technology, marketing, finances. And so we were able to work for free, no outside investors, all self-funded until we can grow enough to get our first vet, then hire our second, then our third vet, then our fourth vet. Now we're at 7 vets. So blood, sweat, and tears, being patient. Every day is a grind, but these victories, right? These milestones that you hit, it makes it all worthwhile.
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you venture backed, or are you guys just growing organically with just basically just plowing cash flows back into the business and growing organically?
Yes, organic growth. Exactly.
Wow, that's wonderful. Very commendable.
We broke even and started making money with the company in 3 months in. And like you said, we would take those funds, put them right back to the company, and continuously try to grow it. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us, so what was this? You have 1,000 veterinary partners? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Most of those veterinary partners are clinics. They are either small mom and pop practices. Maybe they've got like 1 or 2 doctors and small staff. And there are others that are large 24/7, multi-thousand square foot institutions that have multiple specialists in ER, and everything in between that. That's the majority of our clientele, or rather our partners. And then these partners, their goal from their point of view is, how can we prevent burnout, compassion fatigue, the suicide rates, the turnover in our practice. And so when they partner with Vet Triage, they can offload cases to us. And by offloading cases, it keeps their workday balanced. And that way, their staff knows that their leaders care about them because they partner with Vet Triage. If you guys feel stressed out, or if somebody calls out sick, or there's a bad snowstorm outside, throw things to Vet Triage. They'll take care of those pets, and that way they can maintain their work culture. So that's the majority of our partnerships. Beyond that, we've got universities that use us at a similar scale. They also, rescues and shelters will use us. You know, instead of sending a fostered pet or a newly adopted pet automatically to the emergency room, which is expensive and stressful, they code through us first, and we can hopefully band-aid the situation, preventing the emergency visit, saving that rescue hundreds to thousands of dollars a month that they can then use to save more pets instead of using it on an emergency visit that was unnecessary, right? And so those are some of the examples of partnerships and what they benefit, how they benefit from it.
Good. I want to talk about the rescue, foster. I'm very fascinated about that. I just got myself, I threw myself into some of that kind of world recently. So I want to drill down on that here in a bit. But why don't we start off with just just start off with an idea for our audience about Vet Triage, what the basic business is, and what you do for pet parents.
Absolutely. So it's a full-on 24/7 video platform where you, as a concerned pet owner, can talk to a veterinarian live anytime, day or night, any location in the world, to determine whether or not what you're seeing with your pet currently is a true medical emergency, or if we can band-aid the pet until your vet can see you for a regular appointment. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning, the nearest emergency hospital is an hour away, they've got a 7-hour wait, you've got kids that are sleeping, the cat hates being in the car, but now your cat is throwing up. Is this an emergency? Should you drive right now in the snow in the middle of the night wake up your kids and go to the emergency room and spend $500 to $1,000+? Or can this wait until your family vet who's down the street is going to open in 2.5 days? And that's the question we're trying to answer. That small concern, well, I should say concern, that small niche of a large concern for pet owners is how we help them out. And so the vet will determine on video, is this an emergency or not? We find that well over 80% of these concerned pet parents don't have actual emergencies. And so most of the time they can count on receiving peace of mind, advice, monitoring parameters. What can you do? What can you look out for with your pet until your vet opens up again for a regular appointment? In the 20% or less that are actual emergencies, we will help do the search for you, find the nearest emergency hospital, call the on-call doctor, whatever it is, but we will refer you. That way, that transition from a stressed out home environment to the hospital is as seamless as possible.
Yeah, you certainly have answers, and there could be $1,000 answers, and that the difference between going to an ER in what you would think would be a critical situation versus waiting for the first chance you have to see your GP, your general practitioner, veterinarian, it can amount to thousands of dollars, especially if you don't have insurance. So that's a huge service that you provide for pet parents. Remind me, please go ahead.
If I could add to that too, you know, from the standpoint of the client and that general practice, let's say Fluffy Smith went to the emergency room, it was an unnecessary visit, they spent $1,000. That might be all the finances that pet owner had for the next round of vaccinations, right? So if we can prevent those funds from being spent in an emergency setting because it's not necessary, that pet will then receive prophylactic preventive care in the next 3 months when it's due for its annual, right? And so from the general practitioner standpoint, they want that to happen. If it's in the best interest of the pet, of course, they want that to happen. They want that client back, and they want that client to be able to afford preventive care, things like parvo vaccines, rabies vaccines, deworming, heartworm prevention, flea and tick. So it comes full circle.
Yeah, I completely understand. It's the value proposition to partner with veterinary clinics, right? Is that you don't want your clients, the pet parents that you have, you don't want them spending money unnecessarily in an unnecessary crisis situation, because again, it comes down to, especially with insurance, Ginger, we have insurance for Indiana, and there's a cap on that every year. And so when you draw down on that cap, especially with an ER visit, that's money away from rehab, that's money away from wellness examinations and all the other care that GPs want to do. So you're right, there's an opportunity cost out there, and it's a very real issue. So I understand 100%. And if I go back and watch the episode before, I bet I said the same thing. I totally understand the value proposition of Vet Triage, because that's something that needs to be clear to pet parents. And that's your job. Your job is to communicate as quickly and clearly as possible. You know, why vet triage? Why does it make sense? Well, remind me, Shadi. Remind us, Shadi. I don't know why, Ginger. I'm sorry. I keep speaking myself in the singular. Sorry about that. Remind us. I know you're there. Right.
Moon must be gone too.
No, he's right here on my lap. He's just right here. See, he hasn't
Oh.
left. That's why I'm still distracted. So I am trying to focus. I'm trying to do my level best, and take care of a Texas cattle dog on my lap. But remind us, Shadi, though, is a Vet Triage, is it a subscription service that you just sign up and you get all the remind us how it works, please.
We found out from our ground research and our marketing research that subscription models in general, but especially when it comes to pet care, is just not desired by your pet parent. They want to be able to use a service like ours on demand. That's what they want. And so we've stayed away so far from subscription-based models, and we've gone to on demand. For a non-equine pet, so anything that's not a horse, it's $50, $50 US to be on video, unlimited time with the veterinarian, plus free follow-up with that veterinarian until your family vet opens again. So if you accessed us on a Friday night with your sick dog or cat or fish, and things aren't going well over the weekend, you can talk to our vets again continuously all weekend long without paying some more until your vet is open. And so all that is included, that $50 fee. For the horses, and that's one of my announcements for you guys, for the horse platform, the equine platform, it's $75 US. Same deal, unlimited time, video, live, 24/7 global, free follow-up, but it's $75, talk to the equine doctors, and non-equine is $50.
Well, I think that's smart though, because there are two things in this world that we have too much of: advertisements and subscription-based services. And I think if you adopted the subscription-based model, I think that would have a deleterious effect on your business, because people would say, well, I haven't used this service. I haven't used Vet Triage in a long time, and I've been paying them every month, and I'm not using it. Then the hell with them or whatever and stuff. So I love the fact that it's on demand. Clearly, you guys have thought your model through thoroughly. Oh.
We knew from the beginning that if you have a good product, or in our case, a service, that it's based on a strong foundation, it's in the best interest of that pet parent, the pet, and the clinic partner, it's going to grow. It'll grow. Now, it may be harder, or rather more slow to grow without a subscription model, right? Because a subscription allows for a constant influx of income. But we wanted to put the consumer first. That was the ultimate goal. And knowing that it'll take more work, take more time, but better quality. And that's what we've dealt with. And actually, that's why, to your initial question about, being self-funded or outside investors, I mean, the majority of our partners and our pets now come as referrals. There's very few people, I would say maybe less than 20% of the clients we see have found us randomly through Google searches. Over 80-85% are referrals from their brother, their sister, their parents, their neighbors, the university, the clinic. And so it speaks to the quality of service that we provide.
Absolutely. And I wish more vet medicine businesses were that client focused. And I also think that maybe a potential reason why pet insurance is so low, the adoption rate is so low, is that when you have a young dog or a young fuzzy butt or something, is that you pay out monthly, and you don't really see the potential downstream benefits. And people will just come up with and we live in crappy times right now economically. People have to make the hard choices, and we don't want them to make the hard choices. All right, well, I think that's a pretty good catching everybody up to speed on Vet Triage. So you contacted us recently, Ginger recently, and said, hey, it looks like you have 4 new services that you have launched. That's a lot, and I'm excited about that. And so I want to make sure we spend enough time on those, Shadi. So I don't have these in any specific order, so I'll just go down from my list if that's all right with you. Let's start out with the Spanish platform that you guys have launched. I think that's exciting because I'm in San Antonio now. It's very relevant to my world.
So for multiple reasons, the Spanish-speaking community has always been at a disadvantage when it comes to veterinary care. It's hard to find a veterinary facility, especially on an emergency basis, that has anybody who speaks Spanish. A lot of times that clinic, and I've been in this position before too, we have to rely on a non-medical person to interpret for us. Sometimes that non-medical person is the child of the family who owns the dog, right? So you're trying to interpret with a 9 or 10-year-old the language barrier, you're trying to get over that. And so that already is a challenge. Then, of course, there's a certain embarrassment on both ends of not being able to speak English or Spanish, depending on what end you are. So that also affects them. Then there's a financial component too. Vet care is expensive. And a lot of these folks that live in communities, they're not as fortunate to be able to have funds that they can spend on luxury items like pets. That's a concern. Then there's ethical concerns too, cultural concerns, right? They have a different perspective on how to take care of a pet versus a non-Spanish speaking person. That's just the way it is. And so and all that is fair, and it exists, and it's real, and some are good, some are bad. But the point is that we've always known they need access to care. And so we made it a priority to develop a Spanish speaking platform that offers either bilingual vets or Spanish-speaking vets 24/7, any animal type, so that folks who do speak Spanish primarily or exclusively can speak to a Spanish-speaking veterinarian. Now you have that ethical bond, the cultural bond. You understand each other now, obviously, and again, chances are you can avoid the expensive emergency visit and get taken care of with our veterinarians.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that platform has been doing great, and I would say probably the majority of folks that we have are from Puerto Rico that will access us from that platform. But of course, a lot in the U.S., Florida, California, Texas.
Well, that's good to hear about Puerto Rico though, because I always thought they had like the shantytown dogs and all the dingoes and the stray dogs there that actually come over to the United States, and it's good to see that your platform is being adopted over there. That speaks well of perhaps maybe as their culture and their society is progressing in terms of companion animal compassion and humanity. But it's so important because one thing, I'm sure as you know, is that the purity of data, getting the right data, the right history from pet parent to veterinarian is so critical, right? And there's almost zero margin of error because, especially when it comes to cancers, you want to make sure you have that the symptoms are articulated correctly. And whenever there is a barrier, whatever that is, we recently did a podcast where I was criticizing vet clinics for using vet techs to take the history and the information and then give it to the vet. It's like you disintermediate data, and that there's a risk to that, and then sometimes it could be a catastrophic risk. And so it's wonderful that you have a direct communication interface for Spanish-speaking people. I think that's absolutely wonderful. It will result. I'm not sure if you're tracking data, but it would be interesting to see if you are. But it should result in better quality care for Spanish-speaking people, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But you're right. The data on that is hard to collect, right? Because you need to have follow-up data, and that's very difficult for a virtual platform to collect. We are trying, though. I've got 4 publications in the works that is focusing on that exact thing, and it's tough to get that data for publication. But you're absolutely right. I want to applaud you, by the way, for the veterinary technician comment, because vet techs are invaluable. Obviously, no one denies their compassion, their dedication, their skill set, of course. However, in the context that you're referring to, I couldn't agree more. Our vets have, since the beginning, asked, why can't we have a technician start the case and then the vet comes in? And my answer is, for what purpose? It's not going to save you time. You're just going to repeat the questions again. The client a lot of times holds back information until the doctor comes on, so that's pointless. And I want you to bond with that client. And part of that bonding is ask them questions, diving in, right? Sometimes they'll say something to a technician sort of, half-assed. Meanwhile, that may have been your clue as a doctor that you should chase that seemingly mundane detail. So I'm a huge fan of what you said. We're on purpose. We do not even waste the time and our skills of the LVTs, and the doctors do all the history taking and all that with the client. So I wanted to applaud you for that. It's great.
Thank you. And I obviously I said this before when we were talking about it on a previous episode, is I'm not dissing vet techs at all. They're wonderful. I met so many wonderful vet techs in my travels. So many, and I love the fact that they're pushing, they're increasing the level of education, the training, and it's wonderful. But they're not PA level, and then you could probably make a case against PAs as well. Because like you said something that I didn't really articulate before, but I love it, is that the reason why veterinarians, and you have the advanced degrees, is the right questions to ask. And it comes down to, does the vet technician that doesn't have that level of erudition, of training and schoolwork, do they know the right questions to ask? Because the pet parent's not always going to know to give you the right data. So that's another value add for Vet Triage. Absolutely.
And any experienced clinician knows that 90% of your diagnosis is the history. That you're 90% of the way there. You already kind of know what disease you're expecting. The other 10% are the tests that you're going to run that are either going to prove or disprove your hypothesis. But that's the majority of the work, is figuring out from the history what's going on and examining the pet. And you're like, all right, I'm pretty sure this may be hyperthyroid, diabetes. Let's run some tests to find out. And lo and behold, you're right. It's diabetes, and your suspicion is confirmed.
Ginger, were you going to say something, Ginger?
Yeah, I was going to say sometimes it's not just the schooling, but it's obviously the experience. Because as a veterinarian, I may say something to my vet that triggers something like, oh, you know what, so and so was in here like 3 years ago with a dog that came up like this weird case. Let's check this out. And the tech may not have remembered that case, might not know the case, may have it may be something that's not associated, that that's just kind of weird. Because my dogs, I will tell you, if there's a diagnosis that can be weird or off the charts or whatever, they're my dogs. So
My dad was a nephrologist, and growing up, he always said is that the diagnosis is in the history, and there's nothing like a thorough history, and he talked at length about some very complex. He was a kidney doctor, so he had a multi-organ involvement and stuff, and he told me about some really fascinating cases that it just took him a long time of learning the history of the patient to come to the correct diagnosis. And so that's wonderful that you do that. And for the Spanish platform, I think I think you should do that for all languages. I'm sure as you scale up and stuff, but it's wonderful to have that for the Spanish population here in the United States and then around the world, because they are dog loving, fuzzy butt loving a culture, community of people, and it's wonderful to hear that you have that. All right, let's move on, because I want to get through all of these. My apologies if I skip anything, just stop me and let me know. But you also have an equine platform. You were speaking about that earlier. Tell us what that involves, please, sir. Shadi?
So a little bit over a year ago, the American Association of Equine Practitioners, the AAEP, reached out to us and said, hey, the equine field is drowning in emergency after hours on call. There's not enough vets graduating, not enough are staying in the profession. We're getting killed. Can Vet Triage be an option for them to refer emergency cases to? And we said, yeah, absolutely. If there's a need for it and you're willing to give us some sort of a platform, we'll build the damn thing for you. And so we spent an entire year building the equine platform, hiring equine veterinarians, making sure it's staffed 24/7, of course, right? And then the end of last year, we finally released it. We announced it to the public. The first ever in veterinary history equine telehealth platform, where a horse owner, same thing, they're concerned about their horse, they don't know if it's an emergency or not, they'll talk to an equine veterinarian who will then help triage, give advice, same exact process as the non-equine side. You may ask why the increase in fee, why charge more? In general, horses are of course more expensive to take care of than your dog or cat. Also, equine vets are really hard to find. There's only a few thousand in the field, and they are retiring at a remarkably early rate because of burnout. So we need to compensate them well, and so the price is a bit higher for them, but still, horses, an emergency can be thousands and thousands of dollars. If you can avoid that emergency for $75, it's a no-brainer. So yeah, it was first ever equine 24/7. We attended the equine conference last year where we announced it. We'll be attending this year as well. I think it's in November, I believe, and continuing to find the good fight. I will tell you the difference, by the way. There's a cultural difference when it comes down to equine and non-equine, because the equine folks have been so used to giving their clients their cell phone number for decades. And to convince a veterinarian to let go of the reins, no pun intended, of their clients that we can take care of them after hours, that's tough. And so most of the battle there is not convincing horse owners that they should use the platform. It's convincing vets to give up that control, to say, guys, look, you're burning out. We understand that you're your client and you've been used to giving cell phone numbers for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. I think it's time that you just let go, make your quality of life, make your work-life balance a priority now. Stop. You've dedicated enough. And so it's been a cultural battle more than anything when it comes down to the equine side, but that's the equine platform.
Well,
And
I'm glad to hear you made it sounds like a tough adoption curve for the equine veterinarians. I'm glad you're making some headway in that regard. I know this has been Hollywood and stereotype, but I think that service, that platform is amazing because I always had the image of the farmer that has a horse, and the horse steps in a gopher hole or something like that and breaks his leg, and the farmer's like, "Well, we got to shoot it." Pulls out the gun and shoots. It's like, I always thought, well, shouldn't you call somebody first? Maybe see if there's this type of therapy or something like that that was available. And so I know it's a bit stereotypical of it, but for me, the more services or the more resources that you have for somebody that has to make a critical decision or has to make a tough decision and doesn't have the equine veterinarian that's available, because you're right, if there's only one equine veterinarian in your community and they have to go on holiday, they have to travel, and they're not available, you want to have resources available to the farmer, the rancher, or whoever owns the horses. So I think it's a tremendous platform and service that you're offering.
On the small animal side, you have the luxury as an emergency doctor to have that patient travel to you. On the equine side, although some do have haul-ins, most of them, they have to drive out to the person's location. And some of these equine vets are servicing 60 plus miles one way in the middle of the night, and they still have to work the next day, right? So it's a big problem. And so it's compounded by the fact that not only are there less equine vets out there, but they have to commute to get to the patient. So that adds a whole other level of stress. Yeah. And in regards to your euthanasia remark there, yeah, I mean, emergency euthanasia happen. And if we can if a horse did fracture its limb so badly that it can't be repaired, or the horse has other comorbidities that surgery's not an option, we can call an equine veterinarian and try to connect them for a euthanasia that's more humane, in that example. So it's massive. It's massive.
Or at least advise them on how to stabilize the horse until
Sure.
their veterinarian can come out, has the bandwidth. Because like you said, look, I read a statistic recently that there's going to be a serious drop in veterinarians in this country, and that's alarming to me. And I would imagine that's equally, if not more so, true for equine veterinarians. So bandwidth and availability and burnout are going to be big issues.
Yep, absolutely. We have the majority of veterinary students in vet school are not going to be equine vets. Then the ones who do graduate will not be able to survive beyond 5, 10, 15 years before they burn out and they're done. And so they're retiring really early. And every year, the retirement rate is getting earlier and earlier in their career. And not to mention, by the way, they're coming out with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt that they're probably not going to pay back because they're going to retire in 5 years because they're burnt out. So all of this is a recipe for disaster. If we can have the equine world leverage vet triage, although it's not going to be the magic bullet, of course, but it's going to be a substantial improvement. And we know this because we've seen it on the ground with the non-equine side, where hospitals have stayed open longer. They've opened up their shifts. They've been able to retain employees. They've been able to entice new employees to come work for that company because they have vet triage to fall back on.
Excellent, excellent. Well, there's another equally exciting, if not more so exciting, platform that service that you've made available that I'm fascinated to learn more about, because it's also another passion of mine. You have what you're calling vet-to-vet mentorship, and I'm fascinated to learn about that. Please go ahead.
So I recognized early on, being a board certified surgeon, having gone through 3 internships and then a 3-year residency, that mentorship is vital, like any job, but especially in the medical field. If you just graduated and you get your first position as a clinician at a hospital, doesn't matter how big or small it is, you walk in those doors, you're not a proficient veterinarian yet. In fact, you know nothing of the field. You just started. You need a mentor. You need someone who's there, who's been doing it forever, who can teach you the ropes. And you'll learn it over time, obviously, but you need that sort of onboarding. Unfortunately, that's been lost on us. The second an employer hires a new vet, well, that employer wants to start going fishing and go on vacation. They've worked their asses off for decades. You're the new guy. Have at it, right? And then that new vet gets murdered with cases and complexity and clients and all the things that come with managing an operation like that. So mentorship is lacking. And I believe it's a firm component, if not the #1 component, but it's a firm component as to why we are having this veterinary shortage and this veterinary deficit. I believe that the younger generation, especially, they value work-life balance and versatility so much more than having a consistent job that pays the bills. They just leave. And I think lack of mentorship is a big part of it. So what Vet to Vet does is it provides the doctors on the ground who are not as experienced, new graduates, interns, residents, who don't have the mentorship in their lives, to be able to talk to an experienced, seasoned veterinarian on our platform and run a case by them. This happens all the time in large multi-specialty centers. I walk by in the hallway, I see the internist. Hey, doc, have you ever heard of blah, blah, blah? Or what will you do in this scenario? And we have a little hallway consult, right? I call it drive-by consult. Well, you can do that now virtually. And so that veterinarian can present the pet, the x-rays, the blood work to the doctor on video, on Vet Triage, get the consultation that they need, and be able to run with that case with confidence now. So that's the entire premise behind Vet to Vet, and it's the first of its kind.
And so does a vet, a young vet just starting out, or like you said, an intern or a resident, do they just go online and sign up for it? And if so, how many mentors do you have that are a part of the program right now?
So we're fortunate in that the veterinarians I have on the platform anyway are seasoned veterinarians, right? You have to. If I'm going to house veterinarians on my platform and they can't touch the pet with their own hands, they can't run tests, I need them to have seen a case 1,000 times before being comfortable with it. So I only have seasoned veterinarians. So that part of the platform is no problem. For your other question about kind of the flow, the workflow of that, it depends on the practice, because some practices will offload that cost to the consumer, to the client, saying, look, we're going to consult with a more established veterinarian, and so there's going to be a charge there, or they use it as a perk for their new hires. They say, if you work with us, we offer you X number of tokens or credits per month for Vet Triage consults, where you can talk to a veterinarian 24/7 should you need it. And so either however they run their operation is, irrelevant to us. But basically, they would have a hospital account. They go on there, they put in like a coupon code. That way, they bypass the payment page, and that takes care of like their credits or whatever. And then they're on with the veterinarian, just like a pet owner would be. Less than 2 minutes to be on live with a vet to have everything established. It even offers them the ability to plan ahead. Let's say, for example, this case is coming in today. It's going to be a difficult one. You may want to get all your tests collected before consulting with Vet Triage, though you have all your ducks in a row. And so they can plan ahead for it, or they can use it spontaneously. Let's say, for example, they're in surgery and they're in a tight spot in surgery. Get on video, let's go. And we'll help talk you through the surgery. It's happened before. So all those reasons and more, you can try and leverage it. And there's different ways how they want to have the workflow depending on how their hospitals run.
One of the things that you touched upon was that like your veterinarians are confident, right? So I remember going to one of my vets, and he had a new, he had a new hire, mm-hmm. and he had been my veterinarian for, I don't know, 30 years. And I saw the new vet. It wasn't my dog or cat, whichever it was, didn't have anything major, I didn't think. So I was like, okay, I'll see the new vet. And it was funny because I did see the new vet a couple of times, and then I saw my vet for another, the regular vet. And I was talking to him about him. I said, he's really nice, and he seems to know what he's doing and saying, because I asked a lot of questions. I said, but he doesn't seem confident about what he's saying. I said, so that makes me feel a little weird. I said, so could you just look over those records on the other kids just to tell me?
Yeah.
Are we doing it right? And
But you're right, in multi-specialty hospitals and teaching hospitals, you have consultations go on nonstop. And if I'm a patient, if you're a patient, and they ask you, do you want us to do consultations, especially like in internal medicine, they're always talking to each other, right? And somebody asks you, do you want to pay for a consultation? Yes, I would love you to present this case so that we can potentially, pool our mental resources and get the best outcome for the patient. So it's wonderful that you offer that. So your mentors, you also have specialists as well, of course, I would imagine.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you need to have that because some of these cases go above and beyond your sort of general run-of-the-mill, cases. But what we've seen so far is the vast majority of the utility of this is your run-of-the-mill general practice concerns with a new graduate who just doesn't know what to do or what to say to the client, what the next steps are, what should they be thinking in this case, And so it's not just about like giving them that insight in that direction, but you want them to think in a way that's organized. So I compare this all the time to having a bowl of soup. When you graduate, you've got a bowl of soup of all diagnoses in there, all these diseases, just a bowl of soup. That's unorganized, that's sloppy. What you should have a mentality of is a cabinet, a filing cabinet, and every drawer has things. And as you open the drawer, there's folders. Every folder has pamphlets. That's how you organize your thinking. A more structured, algorithmic, almost like a decision tree type of mentality. The problem with the bowl of soup is that new vets, they get paralyzed because all these thoughts unorganized thoughts are going on in their mind. And so really what we're teaching these vets is not necessarily like the direction of the case, how to communicate with clients, of course we are, but how does one think categorically in an organized fashion, systemic fashion, to be able to not become paralyzed in your tracks when a case shows up.
That's a tremendous knowledge base that you're building there with Vet Triage. Are you guys looking at artificial intelligence at some point to help expedite data, the data interface, assimilation, and transference, but more importantly, is to get the correct data to the person who needs it at the time when they need it? Are you guys looking at incorporating artificial intelligence on your platform?
We have it in the back of our minds. We have not dived into that world just yet. We're waiting to see where things go with it. And as far as my own experience goes in clinical practice, using artificial intelligence for things like reading X-rays, for example, or reading ultrasound, I haven't been too impressed with it. My own eyeballs and my own brain are way more valuable to me than trusting this because I read their interpretations and I'm like, that's cookie cutter, copy and paste answer. I can't. So, but again, it's not to knock on it. It's in its infancy, right? It just started. I'm sure it's going to get way, way better and very quickly. So we're waiting for it to evolve a bit more, and then we'll see where we can incorporate it into our platform. Yeah.
Well, it's nascent. That's for sure. It's a nascent technology, but as you scale and want to scale bigger and expand to a larger mentorship base, a larger partnership base with veterinary clinics and so on and so forth, you're going to be accumulating more and more data, and that will be difficult to manage and process. But more importantly, is to maybe communicate that to the veterinary medicine community via scientific publications, research articles, and so on and so forth. I'm a data guy. I think I say it. I say this every episode. I'm a data guy, and I'm excited about the potential of AI and what it can do to benefit veterinary medicine. We just had Jaime Modiano from University of Minnesota, and he's looking at working specifically on AI as a better diagnostic tool for specific types of cancer. So I'm excited about it, but it's certainly in its early days, and you don't want it to hallucinate and give you the wrong data or the wrong answer. So. Yeah. All right, well, let's see. The other thing is, and this is very near and dear to my heart nowadays, is you've got help for rescues. You talked about this briefly before. You get some help for rescues and fosters, and I just rescued a stray. I made the mistake of rescuing a stray dog here in San Antonio because this is the dumping ground for stray dogs here. It's a large population of it. But I'm a dog guy, and I did that, and I need a lot of help with that. I probably should make an announcement, Ginger, at the podcast. If you need a German Shepherd stray in the San Antonio, Texas area, I've got a great dog who's been on the road for a little while, but he's a sweet boy. But so tell us, Shadi, what sort of help? What is your program that you're offering now for rescues and fosters?
So for rescues and fosters, similar to the vet to vet, we offer them a coupon code. And that way their fosters, their staff, their team members can access Vet Triage by bypassing the payment page, use that coupon code, and they're on with the doctor in less than 2 minutes. And the idea there is, does that foster parent who's stressing out about something with that kitten or puppy on an overnight at home, should they go to the emergency room or not? And if we know that what it comes down to with rescue world is budget. Right? Finances are always a struggle. And if they have to go to the emergency room needlessly and spend $500 on something, that could have saved like 2 or 3 more animals for adoptions and vaccines and things. And and you want to spend that if you need to, but most of the time you don't have to spend that, and you can get advice. So what they'll do is they'll only to their most trusted fosters and staff members, they'll hand over the coupon code, which gives them free access to Vet Triage 24/7, and then we'll triage them like normal, and then go from there. The beauty about this is that because these are not necessarily client-owned animals, these are strays that need homes, we actually implement also what's called a hybrid model. So the hybrid model is where the rescue is open. They have a kind of like a mini clinic. They've got some basic blood work and x-rays maybe and treatments, but they only have one vet on, and that vet can't work 7 days a week. And now he or she's on vacation, or they're recovering from a surgery or something, right? Well, now they need a veterinarian on the ground, and veterinarians are not cheap, 6-figure salaries, right? And that's a lot for a rescue. So they'll use our vets as the in-house veterinarians. So they log in, have our vet on the platform. Their assistant, their technician, their nurse is there. They can examine the pet with the direction of our veterinarian. Our veterinarian can then say, okay, what tests you have available, what treatments you guys have, let's look at your shelves, let's see what you got, let's give this injection, do these x-rays, get this blood work done, and let me know what the results are, and we'll go from there. So I call it the hybrid model, and it's invaluable for these organizations to still allow them to intake stray animals, right, and be able to process them with a veterinarian so they get them as healthy as possible for getting ready for adoption until the vet returns.
Yeah, Ginger, let me ask you a question. You know the shelter rescue world, the in and out of it pretty well. What percentage of the typical rescue or shelter is vet bills or vet bills? What percentage of the budget of the average rescue? Is it like 20%? Is it bigger than that? Because
well, it depends on the particular facility. So when I was at the Humane Society in Memphis, we only took in injured, abused. So our vet bills were probably a good 40 to 50% of the overall budget. Some of the other ones, they don't take in the injured and abused. So obviously it wouldn't be as high. So I would say probably 20-25% if I'm just guessing. And it also depends on whether or not they treat heartworm disease, which is expensive to treat.
Well, that's 40-50% of the budget then, and I would imagine emergency calls, the emergency aspect of vet medicine and the vet bills would be a high percentage of that as well. So yeah. That's a tremendous value add that you're offering to rescues and shelters. That's wonderful. Where do people go? Where do rescues and shelters go to learn about that specific program, and how to sign up for it and how to get involved with it?
So we used to go every year to the Humane Society Expo in.
That's where I met you last year.
Yeah, but now since it's all word of mouth, we haven't gone at least this past year because we've been getting referrals from other humane societies and SPCAs because they know an organization somewhere in the world that uses us already within their sphere, and so they'll say, "Hey, contact Vet Triage; they'll help you with this." And then we set up a meeting and we talk virtually. So that's literally how it's been going on. But otherwise, any organization, whether it's a rescue or a university or clinic, can go to vettriage.com and click on contact us, and then send an email, and then we'll go from there. It's easy to do.
Well, Shadi, is that how everyone can go on to vettriage.com and learn about all these new platforms and services that Vet Triage is offering now?
Absolutely. The vet to vet platform is going to be unique to vet hospitals, but your pet lover, your pet parent can go on there, Spanish speaking, horse, squirrel, fox, doesn't matter, and go to vettriage.com, follow the instructions. Or if you already know that your clinic is partnered with Vet Triage, then that pet owner can go to their clinic's website, click on the Vet Triage logo, get direct access that way too.
Well, Shadi, you're solving some big problems for pet parents and veterinary medicine. It's amazing, and I tremendously appreciate you coming on our show to update us on what's going on. And I'm glad you're doing well financially and scaling nicely, and you're getting a lot of adoption with pet parents and the veterinary community. Is there anything that I missed that you wanted to discuss or talk about this episode?
Yeah. A big part of this is the partnership is free. So when rescues use our platform, when universities use us, hospitals use us, that partnership, all that support, we only charge for the time with the doctor on video with that animal. we don't charge for everything else. And we create a landing page that's customized, flyers that are customized, protocols that are customized for that institution, that facility, all free, all free. So no contracts, no agreements. We don't charge you a dime. The pet parents pay us directly, and that takes care of our overhead costs for the platform to run smoothly.
I think that's wonderful because I'm a dollar and cents ROI kind of guy, and you just don't want money going to admin, going to subscriptions that aren't being. Yeah, you want it to go as needed basis, right? You want it to whatever the use is going to, that's what you need it for, and I would imagine that's much better, Ginger, from a fundraising standpoint as well.
Yeah,
For
it is.
rescues and shelters. So, man, I think that's. Go ahead, please.
The veterinary community, we're emotional creatures, and so we like to work with companies that we trust, that we inherently trust. And so it's hard for us to justify helping, being friends, being an extension of your hospital, but also charging you at the same time for it. It doesn't seem kosher to me. And so as a veterinarian myself, I liked working with companies when I was in brick and mortar that I knew the people, I knew the representative, I trusted them. And that's worth way more to me than maybe a better deal down the street, And so that's what we're trying to achieve here with this model.
Yeah, well, I would say that it's interesting that when I talk to you again, I realize you're so busy. You're coming up with these great programs and great platforms and all these things that are very much needed in veterinary medicine, and that's why you don't have a fuzzy butt. But so on the one hand, I want to push you and say keep going 1,000 miles a minute to come up with some more interesting programs and platforms and stuff. But on the other hand, I want to say slow down because you need to adopt a fuzzy butt. And speaking of, if you do, I have a German Shepherd stray that I rescued last week. That would be great for you. He's a sweet boy, but I kid. I get it. It's we all have work to do, and it's a lot. And I'm glad that you're out there working on innovative ideas to make veterinary medicine flow more seamlessly, work better, and be more receptive and conducive to pet parents who are in need. So I appreciate your efforts, but at some point, next time you come on the show, though, Shadi, you got something. There has to be a pathway to a fuzzy butt. I plan on
rent a fuzzy butt.
Rent a fuzzy butt, exactly. Yeah, I think you could go. Maybe it's in Japan. I think it's in Japan. You can actually go and you can like rent a cat, and you can take the cat and hang out with the cat for. I don't know if it's true with dogs, but it's the Japanese are very fast.
For a dog for the day.
I guess
go to your nearest humane society and say, hey, I would like to just offer the dog a day out.
All right. Well, we're wrapping everything up for this episode. Shadi, is there anything else? Give us the website one more time that people can go to learn more about Vet Triage, please.
Vettriage.com. That's VETTRIAGE.com.
All right. Is there anything I left out before we go?
You guys have been phenomenal as always. Thank you again for having me on.
It really is a pleasure, and I enjoy talking to you because you just have got things figured out, and you're very circumspect with how you're building your business and how you're helping pet parents. So you're always welcome back on Fuzzybutts and Friends at any time, Shadi. And I expect to see you next year with another 6 programs that you've launched. I'm excited about that. All right,
no problem.
Well, let's make it a date. All right, we've reached the time of the show, Ginger, where we like to have a puppy up cancer tip of the week. Do you have something for us this week?
I do, and you know what? Do you still have Moon in your lap? You can maybe demonstrate with Moon.
He's conked out by my feet. Let's see if I can get him up.
Oh, okay. Oh. I was just going to say, if you've got, there you go.
All right.
So since he seems to be so loving, so what I was going to talk about is when you're checking your dogs for lumps and bumps, you need to do from nose to tail. So you check, you can look in their nose, but you can look in their eyes, see if there's anything wrong there, open their mouth, look in their mouth, their ears. And there he goes when you start talking about messing with them. And then just, take your hands down their body, feel under their armpits, down their legs, between their toes. And then just, work back, their back legs, the groin area, their tail, the toes back there, under their tail. Just, check everywhere that you can if anything seems to be odd or you feel a lump. And sometimes the lump, it's a lump and it's not a bump. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes I think lumps and bumps are the same thing, but really a bump is something that is really raised like in one area. But a lump to me is something that I can feel over over a space, which I felt that a couple of times. And if you're not feeling like both sides of your dog at once. I know, I think it was Hudson one time, there was a lump, not a bump on him that you could feel it with one hand and not on the other. But if you only used one hand, you wouldn't have realized that there was a difference, or I would not have realized there was a difference. So
I still don't understand
nose
the
to
difference.
tail.
To me, I still don't understand the difference. But if it looks, to me, if it looks suspicious, take it into the vet, have it aspirated, and just find out. That's my advice. But
I'll give you I'll look up the Webster definition of a lump and a bump.
all
Send it to you.
right. Well, thank you, Ginger, for the Puppy Up Cancer Tip of the Week. I appreciate that. And I'll also love to give a shout out to this episode's sponsor. As you know, Indiana, my geriatric dog, he's been on Genie's Therapeutics, their wonderful hemp-based CBD formulation. And it's wonderful. We love it. Please go check it out. It's a great product, and I think it's best in the business. And we've been using it for a while, and I want to give him a shout out. If you want to learn more about it, go to geniestherapeutics.com. All right, Shadi Ireifei, I really appreciate you coming onto our show again. We look forward to having you on next year with some more great updates with Vet Triage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, that it wraps up this episode of Fuzzybutts and Friends. You can check this out. I highly recommend it because you've never seen me with a fuzzy butt, and you've never seen my nose licked and cleaned out by a Texas cattle dog. Moon is cute as could be. I kind of woke him up, and I think he's a little irritated with me now. So I wanted to get him up and to wave goodbye, but go check out our YouTube feed at it's fuzzybuttsstudios.com. That's where you can find it, or you can listen to this episode on your podcast platform such as iHeartRadio or Spotify. Until next week, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Puppy up. Talk soon.
Bye.